Hi. Hope you guys had a good lunch. So for this panel, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to get each one of the panelists to share more about themselves very quickly, and to also allow them to actually say why they're here and what they hope to achieve out of this full-day conference. After that, we'll get into a discussion. And the idea that I'm trying to encourage is that through the discussion, we want to look at ways that we can actually work together. So instead of just hearing ideas, at the end of it, it would be great if you guys can come up to say, what is it that you guys could do together with us to take things to the next level. And we've also got a very eclectic mix in the panel. We've got ecosystem builders like Marcus, as well as we've got practitioners like Pursuit. So we'll kind of give you a very full perspective. And we've also got friends from the world, as well as from the region. So we'll try to give you a global perspective, and we'll bring it down local, and we'll try to make it as relevant as possible for you. With that, perhaps I can get Marcus to start.
Thanks to hear me. So fintech is the area of financial technologies. Everything innovates and transforms and even sometimes disrupts the finance and banking space. Startup Bootcamp Fintech, very quickly who we are. Startup Bootcamp Fintech is an accelerator, more or less, that bridges the gap between early stage fintech startups and the banking world. As you know, banks on the one hand side are full of fear, full of greed, full of the fear of missing out, that there's something happening outside the banking building they can't control, they don't know of. So they want to be involved with startups. On the other side, you have startups, early stage, 2 or 3 guys in a team with a prototype, looking to work with banks but don't know where to start. So our mission and vision is to really bridge this gap of the two very different worlds in Startup Bootcamp. Startup Bootcamp is 6 years old, within Europe quite big. Startup Bootcamp Fintech is 2 years old, so we actually start ourselves. And we've done this in London the last 2 years, and we moved to Singapore in January this year. What's important is that we actually are supported by the industry. So we have 15, I believe, corporate partners, everything from DBS, MasterCard, RHB, CIB, Lloyds Bank, Rabobank, so on and so on, PwC, and also we have IDA and DMS on board as the industry partners. It's very important for us that we really bridge the gap and we collaborate within the fintech space. So as we keep preaching, at the startup we're quite alone. We have not many friends, apart from your co-founders. So you really want to meet the right people at the right position at the right time, and ideally get partnerships and revenue, and also then actually get the funding. Quickly about fintech, then I finish, and then that's it. So we came here in Singapore in January, as I said, to build ecosystems, to help shape the ecosystem in fintech. The West had a big crisis, as you know, in 2007, 2009, where fintech really kicked off in New York and London. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of talent left the banks, started new companies, being frustrated with this current system. And I think we see a lot of stuff happening right now in these hotspots. And now Singapore, Hong Kong, Sydney, Mumbai are all coming up with the map of fintech, because the banks and entrepreneurs are realizing there's a big opportunity where the friction in financial services is just so high, you can do so much. Right? We all know that the banks are a very funny animal that is hard to trust sometimes. And we believe that entrepreneurs on the B2C or the B2B side are really looking now here in the region to, in Singapore, be on the B2B, to really improve processes, look into capital markets, asset management, wealth management a lot. And then obviously you have the hinterland, the areas around Singapore where financial inclusion and the friction is so high on the consumer side that you can do so much in payments as a start, but I think we'll see way more things happening in tech. It was very quick, so I'm sorry, I'm very fast speaking German, so I hope that was okay. Yeah.
Oscar, maybe you can take over and share more.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Oscar Joffrey. I guess, for the last 3 years, I've been describing myself more of an evangelist. I believe in crowdfunding. As an entrepreneur, I need it. I want it. But at the same time, I'm very sensitive to the fact that securities commissions have a great impact whether this will happen. And I've been very fortunate that traveling around the world, regulators are opening up. And more importantly, recognizing that technology is the key to making this happen. So we have been very fortunate that as a company, we've launched an infrastructure platform that's going to solve one of the greatest problems we believe in crowdfunding, and equity-based crowdfunding in particular, and worldwide. As I said earlier, I mean, up until now, it's been really trying to educate the market in different parts of the world. Today, I'm in a 20-city tour. This is city number 3 for me, and I'm spreading the word of equity crowdfunding. How does it work, and what's that can happen for your companies? And you've heard John here earlier talking about how they are and what they're looking for as far as companies. I want to make sure you get there. So he's going to make it happen, but you still got to go through a group like me to get you ready for that. So I hope to talk to you a little bit more further on that.
Maybe you can talk more about startup ecosystem development in Thailand and how you see crowdfunding or equity crowdfunding.
Cool. My name is Gandhi from the ASEAN based in Bangkok, Thailand. This is, I think, the third time that I actually talked into the Crowdfunding Asia Summit platform, 2 of them in Bangkok earlier on this year. And we hold the other one in July earlier on this year as well. I was really glad to be here. The mission of the ASEAN essentially is we would like to be the platform that connects the new generation of ASEAN. We have ASEAN community, rolling up at the moment as 2015. What we see in the future, we would like to be a platform that connecting up the new generation of ASEAN and Southeast Asia. So when I look into the details, who are going to be the main focus, the new gen would love to be the sense of entrepreneurship is really high. The wave of startup is right there, not just in Singapore, Malaysia, it's also Thailand and northern parts of ASEAN, including Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and Myanmar, and those countries that I visited a lot. So then, come down to the sense. Those are the mission that I would like to convey in the next few years. So then, we're thinking about that, how to connect those people, not just only the business, but we would like to connect them to know in terms of the lifestyle and get to know each other. So along the line, we create the activities and projects such as CSN Forum, such as Startup Runway that we're going to launch soon, and then come about the crowdfunding platforms that I strongly believe is going to open up a whole lot more opportunities, not just in the Thailand market, but I'm talking about the regional market. Back to the questions about the startup ecosystem. What I would say, looking back only a few years, so it's only 2 or 3 years, the ecosystem has developed so quick, so fast. We are starting out, carry on the Thai Startup Index. We're trying to understand how well they're doing and what type of investment they get. So we'll see that the ecosystem and the environment of startup in Thailand is quite, to me, I would say, it is fast growing, very creative, and top of that is very supportive. We have a big guy who have failed before, success before, lending the knowledge to other friends. So that's just in a nutshell.
Cool, thank you. And Shai, do you want to share more about your platform and also your model around it being a software as a service and how you can actually power other platforms?
Good afternoon. My name is Chaisri Kangmandasak. I take in charge of our technical Singapore development. And our mission is we want to see crowdfunding everywhere and every place. Like for example, we want to solve the problem. Like in Thailand, there are many villages that have the problem, like many criminal, the pollution, the road broken, or many problems, and they're waiting for the government to go there and fix it. And actually, it takes very long time. So that's our vision to create the Singapore platform, the software and software as a service to help them solve the problem. They may have the software to run and then let fund inside the society to solve the problem. So instead of waiting government, they can do, I think, better this way. And one of the very first question is when people come to us, how is different before the use crowdfunding? You see the donation box, right? Actually, it is anywhere in 7-Eleven when you donate or you contribute. The question is where is the money go to and how much the society or the campaigner got the fund. So actually, crowdfunding is the best way to provide the visibility to solve the problem. So we are doing all the crowdfunding software service to solve the problem. And actually now I'm using 3.0, which what we call the intelligent crowdfunding. And just a few moments at the morning session, I know learning something about the IP, intellectual property, right? Actually, when we search the intelligent crowdfunding, actually there are some platforms that already talk about it. But okay, it's not like the copy, but it's from our experience that we build one with our experience, our data to solve the problem in the future. And the feature is that we want the platform to be more helpful in the way of when investor ABC come to the platform and they see the thing that they don't want to see, then they leave, right? What the intelligent one, they know more about the user, and they show the thing that user want to see, and then the user continue to use our system. That is, okay, this is just my overview.
So in the last question, you're a practitioner of crowdfunding. Maybe you could share how you could do things that traditionally you couldn't have done, and how crowdfunding played a key role with it.
Right. Can everybody hear me? Is this working? Cool. Alright, so my background is very different, and in fact I was quite scared when I saw the first panel in the morning. I actually come from an industry where we are actually just sourcing crowd for funding for ourselves. How can they actually contribute not only through the tons of data available in architecture and planning, and that's what prompted us to start Billion Bricks as an organization. What we implant in a community should go viral. And the problem that we're trying to solve exists not only in developing economies, but in the developing economies as well. And how we, sitting in Singapore, could start leveraging resources from countries across the globe and have a footprint which extends beyond Singapore as a market. And that's where crowdfunding comes in. So soon after we were founded, we started our first project, which was a shelter for homeless children in Mumbai. And we tried to set up a crowdfunding campaign for it, but we failed miserably because the platform didn't support us very strongly in the follow-through of the campaign. So we had to pull out of the campaign. But after a year, we were better prepared. We also learned that crowdfunding just doesn't work by putting a project on a platform. You really need to work hard on it. So the second campaign that we did was actually a 72-hour campaign, and we raised $30,000 in 72 hours for the disaster relief work in Nepal. And that's when we started to learn and understand the power of it. And I was just talking to somebody that we were also surprised that almost 20 to 25% of the money that we raised came from just one country in Europe called France, where we didn't even have any presence. But just because we could leverage some of our contacts in that particular country, our reach was in areas where it traditionally wasn't there at all. And that way we've been able to network into the United States, into UK, France, and of course Asia, where we are anyways present. And now we are taking it to the next level, where we are thinking of doing a crowdfunding campaign for a new product that we've designed, which is innovative, and we think it can click with the crowd very well. And we want to raise about $200,000 to bring that into market for disaster relief and for the homeless communities that we typically work.
Thank you. That was very enlightening and inspiring. Let me start with the first question. It's probably targeted towards Marcus and Oscar. So you guys see things on a very global perspective, and you've seen fintech from the beginning. What are some things that are happening in the West that Asia has been slow to adopt, and what are things that we can do so that we can reinvent or even create something that's unique for Asia?
Big question. I believe actually Asia is not too far behind. So I moved to Singapore in January this year, being known before, doing fintech, from everything crowdfunding to P2P lending and so on. And I think, to be honest with you, I mean, regulations are still behind here. I mean, the MAS and other regulators are catching up very quickly. I think there have been information travels so fast that they've been traveled to the West and all out. I know the MAS does a trip every week basically now to meet the FCA in London, for example, so on and so on. I think it's moving quicker and quicker. I've seen that entrepreneurs are yet to be educated more here. So where in the UK it's very normal that you take on crowdfunding, either Kickstarter or Crowdfunding or the other big websites. It's very seen as an alternative source of funding. It's taken very serious. If you hear it's really more about quick cash from angels or VCs. There's so much early stage cash available, I would say, in Singapore at least, that there's not yet enough competitiveness for funding sources. So this is one of the big things. So two of my startups, I guess personally, two startups, they left themselves to crowdfunding websites and it's been very successful in the UK. I haven't seen it happening here. And I mean, especially in fintech, which is kind of, I think the umbrella for crowdfunding and all different workers in it. I think fintech startups haven't really also raised that much crowdfunding capability here because it's more about smart money that you don't get through crowdfunding yet. Is it perception? I think it has to change.
Perfect. I guess my comments would be, up until about a month ago, I would have said Asia's behind. And I would say now Asia's way ahead. And so I'll give it to you in a couple contexts. On the peer-to-peer side, wow, China's got 1,000 portals for peer-to-peer, 1,000. And those are the ones they can find. So there's a lot of platforms out there that we're not aware of. Equity crowdfunding has started in China in April 1st. It was predicted by Forbes that it would do 50 billion by 2025. Last month they announced it. In 3 months they did over 65 billion. So, you know, now where I will agree with Marcus in one area, which is it's being echoed, and I'll echo to you here. Please, you know, take best practices. Go to the UK, go to the US, start getting your entrepreneurs ready. This is by far the biggest problem globally. 90% or more are getting turned away by equity portals. You may have a great idea. You could probably have the best thing the world is looking for, but if you're not ready, if you're not due diligence ready for the platform, you're not going to get listed. And if you don't get listed, you ain't going to get anyone. And this is from the equity and the debt side. I don't speak of the other forms of crowdfunding because I'm purely still on the regulated side. So I see something totally different happening now. China made the announcement as well during the crowdfunding conference that 50 to 100 million accredited investors are now allowed to invest using the market globally. So here's what I'll tell you. There's lots of money in every single country in the world. Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Canada, there's money everywhere. That's not the problem. And then people say, well, then there's no companies. No, there's tons of those. The problem is, how do you bring those two together in a way that you make everybody happy? And entrepreneurs, you cannot be lazy anymore. Faster, we're using the same social media streams that you're using in order to get the crowd. So take advantage of it. And you know, the incubators, startup groups, they're the great place to start and get your advisors and your mentors. Don't make the horrific mistake that others have done.
Thank you. So when we talk about crowdfunding, everyone talks about money. But how else can we use crowdfunding to better benefit us as a startup? Whether it's PR or even to crowdsource innovation or even to get support. Person, maybe we'll just pass the mic.
Yes, so I think that's a great point. In fact, in our experience, we probably gained less in terms of money, but more in terms of PR and other resources that we could get access to through the crowdfunding platform that we used. And I think there are 3 stages to it. One is the pre-planning in crowdfunding, where you would start creating buzz about the campaign which is going to be started. The second is during the campaign and how closely are you interacting with the audience that you're building up. And then it's the post-campaign follow-through and how diligent and how transparent you are. So for somebody like us, one is, besides of course the funding part, what brings in is additional level of transparency that we can bring into the sector, which gives people more confidence in terms of what we are doing. But at the same time, it prepares people for the next round of crowdfunding that we do, because we are doing project-based crowdfunding. So we will have projects coming at regular intervals, which will give people confidence that this is the organization. And some of the negative things that I can tell you, what we experienced when we did the crowdfunding campaign with regards to the earthquake in Nepal, was that a lot of people, when the word spread out, especially when we were being published in blogs and stuff about what we were planning to do, a lot of people came back to us saying, why should we fund you and not a bigger enterprise like Red Cross or somebody who we know where the money is going? And what we could do as a smaller and more nimble organization at that time was give the confidence to people that we will be extremely transparent and you will know where your dollar is going, as opposed to a bigger organization where it goes into a pool. And it could create maybe a far more impact than what we could do. But at least you will know how you're helping the organization grow. And our reach is also very different, right? So when we went into Nepal with the crowdfunding money that we had raised, we could go into places where other organizations were not going, because a lot of times they partner with governments, and our money could reach to people where other organizations could not. So those are some of the things that helped us build up ourselves as an organization. And I think it has really propelled us both in terms of our internal confidence and also how others perceive us into the very competitive area that we are operating. Thank you.
Those are the people that come around to see ASEAN and ask for little suggestions here and there. Let me take an example of coin back. Coin is a little coin to have your pocket. Back is like giving back. That is some venture that I am proud of. I have nothing to do with it, but it's just so awesome. They create a smart box, similar to your donation box, but this one is go online. Even you just chip in only, for instance, I give them 10 baht. 10 baht is just a fraction of Singapore dollars, and I can choose where to go. Where would I donate? I could donate them to buy lunch for disadvantaged kids, or some meal for stray pets, dogs, things like that. And then they will keep coming back to me with emails and with that 10 baht that you donate, what type of impact that actually we created. So I don't think money that matters, however, but it matters in what brings to the sense the most to that crowdfunding platform is you are actually giving back to the society with something you do. You don't call it investment. You call something as a casual donations. So I would say there are a lot of opportunities and alternatives that crowdfunding could spin off, not just to be the investors or the investors or the idea initiators. It's all about making the society much better. That's one example that I am with. The second example that I'm always proud of is the book crowdfunding platform. I launched the most recent book through this crowdfunding, what we call afterward. Most of them are the Thai books, and I was the first one. I pretty much, I wrote articles like every week, so I pull it up and said, oh yay, they're gonna make money this time. But the money is nothing. But it's, my name's out there that have my book launched through crowdfunding platform, and it's just so cool. Well, most of them that supported me are my families and friends. That's for sure. That was a starting point. That's crowdfunding. We said, not to get from my dad only, so that's the best thing. So that's the starting point. We're starting out with friends, family, But now it's only less than a year that crowdfunding raised up until like 4 million baht, and that's proposed with no profit. So I think that's a good start, for Thai society to understand, both demand and supply, that crowdfunding actually can make a difference, not just in terms of financial type, but in terms of the social contributions.
For now, I want to share more of my experience, especially most in Thailand. The problem is the campaigner have experience is they are afraid of when they put their campaign on the platform and they got copied. Yeah. And there are some campaigners that put the campaign into my platform and put the information only written, and they didn't explain anything that makes sense. So what happened is zero, right? So because I always told the campaigner that if you really want the campaign or to happen, do not afraid of copy. You just do your best, and it is your idea, your experience. One thing that can differentiate the crowdfunding is the story. Every campaign has different story, and it must have the how come is happening in this campaign. Like for example, I share more about one campaign that also come here on the other room. It's called Big Pop. It is the campaign to create the playground for blind children. Actually, I really like this campaign because I work on computer, right? And imagine if I turn out blind, I think my job will be very difficult. So, and I really see the story that the thing this can help the children to be more confident, to be more creative, to solve the problem. So this one, and now they are ready to be on the crowdfunding, and tomorrow they are also go to pitching. And also tomorrow is our big day for my platform, because it's the live crowdfunding. Imagine that 20 plus campaign that put the campaign to the platform, and we do the activity like carnival style. When they pitch, people can know more about them. So it is really benefit them that they come out, put the story, and then when someone like them, they can help when they go back, they tell their family to share more and more and more. And that's you make their campaign success. This is my
Great story there. I guess I'm going to stick with the global side of crowdfunding, because I think it's always important to kind of look at it from that high level, and then, as you said earlier, bring it down to country specific. One thing that I will tell you about crowdfunding that I learned 5 years ago, what really it is. And a lot of people didn't really understand crowdfunding. The country that I'm from, called Canada, we have a very beautiful story that I think you all need to understand this, and regulators need to hear it, and government. We had a great entrepreneur that wanted to build a product, and he was only looking for a very small sum of money in order to make that dream come true. The angel group said no, because if Sony, Samsung aren't doing it, what kind of a crazy guy are you? The venture capitalists didn't touch him, and so on. So it wasn't about the money, and that was all of a sudden about the idea. The professionals are telling him that he was wrong. So what he did, like every other creative entrepreneur, when you have something, you go where you can get it. So what did he do? He got an address in the United States. He was looking for $100,000, and 30 days later, the crowd came back with $10 million. 10 million. So we learned a lot of good things about that. We call that the Canadian story, and that's where it ends. Because here's the real sad part of that story. The sad part of that story is that he got the money, and him and his 5 other engineers packed their bags and moved to the United States. And they have never moved back ever since. So crowdfunding is not about the money, it's about the social movements that you need to make happen here. And it's great that you do it on the social good side, and that's great. But at the end of the day, people need to make money. Okay, so we have to face the reality. Money needs to make money in order to keep evolving. And that's where the regulators need to understand that if you need to have these in your countries, otherwise innovation will leave. I just read something that 93% of citizens, correct me, I think it's Thailand where they said they would want to move abroad. That was very scary. They want to look for jobs abroad. So innovation will go where they think they need to be. And innovation is here. I mean, Marcus is here. So he's telling you, there is innovation here. So now you need to support that innovation. You need to support him and others, who, like myself, who are making the commitment to be here. So money is everywhere. Let's not, I told you that before, it's everywhere. It's about bringing it all together. Social is good, but let's not forget the major reason why we're here in this conference, to support housing so it can keep going on every year. It's equity-based crowdfunding, debt crowdfunding, that's nuts and bolts. That's where the real money is. People need to make money, and regulators need to allow investors the ability to invest. Otherwise, innovation will lead. Make no mistake about that. It will lead.
Very nice. Very powerful. Thank you. Maybe a few more boring words. I think one other aspect of crowdfunding is also talent bit. Probably part of the PR and exposure, but I had a really experience where startups that went through crowdfunding and actually did successful campaigns got rid of talent afterwards. Because they saw, okay, this startup raised $500,000, whatever it is, and it must be good, so I'd like to join the startup. And especially in the region here, I think where talent is still not yet developed to be entrepreneurial and have the mindset. Something crowdfunding can help to say, yep, validated, publicly validated, basically, I'd like to join. And I think it can be a nice bridge to actually find good talent as well.
I have one thing to add, because I just came across one of Thai medical students the other day. Because we talk about crowdfunding is more like startup entrepreneurs, but something that really hit me just last weekend. A medical student came up to me and said, Ajahn, I was a professor, was teaching in university, said, I have a research and I believe this is super awesome. So what I did, I successfully published in medical journal, and that's pretty much the end of academic career. You know, once you actually get published and you're done with that. But this very medical student come up to me and said, how can I make this happen? It's published, and I don't know where to go. I don't want to go to a pharmaceutical company, because at the end of the day they're going to come back and charge a lot here in this part of the world. So he said, shall we put up the crowdfunding platform? So we're going to make research on the shelf in universities, live online. And that's an initiative from medical students who have nowhere in the world that you're going to see entrepreneurship in their lives. But this is happening here in Thailand.
I actually got a funny story to share too. So, our guest of honor talked about a project called Bamboo Bee. So I actually knew the guy who did it before. He was actually on an exchange in Kazakhstan, and he wrote to me on a postcard to say that he's trying to build a bamboo bicycle, and he's trying to ride back to Singapore because he's trying to save money and he wanted to do it as a fundraiser. So when I got the postcard, the first thing I thought in my head is, what the hell are you smoking there? And then I spoke to him and I said, look, we can gather some support, help you do that project. But if you actually get onto a crowdfunding platform, you probably can reach out to a lot more bicycle or cycling enthusiasts, and that could definitely take the project off to another level. And of course, he actually went on to run a successful crowdfunding platform, crowdfunding exercise, and got a lot beyond just customers. He also got partners. He moved his production to China via partners that he actually found via his campaign. So yeah, there's a lot of other benefits that we get out of it. I want to talk a bit about equity crowdfunding. Everyone talks about the bad things, or the things can go wrong. Some of the panelists earlier talked about having secondary markets, or even having tools so that you can actually inform your supporters more about your company. Do you guys have any ideas on things that we could do so that the industry can evolve and we could get EC.
Crowdfunding is very different than any other form of crowdfunding. You need a business plan. You need an entity. You need mentors. You need a board of directors. Whether you have an idea or a product, it doesn't matter, but you need the basics of business. And then you're going to have a shareholder base. That management is only phase one of that life that you're going to live. Because now you're 1,000. It's almost like a magical number. So it isn't going to, due diligence is the killer if you're not ready. It's black and white now. So, fraud.
Go ahead, do you want to share more?
Wow. So, I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better gift on October 28th, 2 days before the U.S. opens up Title III to all Americans over the age of 18. 233 million Americans will now be able to invest. But at the same time, 2 days earlier, a horrific thing happened, which is our first equity crowdfunding fraud in the United States for $5 million US. So it's not a small amount of money, it's $5 million. So there are two ways you can look at it. There's one side that says, see, I knew it, it's full of fraudsters. Okay? So that's one way to look at it.
Maybe you can share more.
Sure.
Exactly what the fraud was.
So the fraud is, it's an oil and gas company that raised $5 million from just over 90 accredited investors from the United States and other countries as well, from what we call bulletin board portals, which I'm not in support of, and there are many who don't support this model, which are exempt from having a broker-dealer, a professional or a VC, like what John at our crowd has, who do conduct heavy due diligence. So this company was able to put whatever they wanted on a platform, and it was up to the investor to, to determine whether there was a good opportunity. They faked the partnerships. They said they had partnerships with big oil and gas company. Didn't exist. They showed names that they have as advisors. These people didn't authorize anything. Everything was a fraud. This was the classic fraud we were looking for. And of the $5 million, he spent $1.8 million to himself. Used it all for his personal gain. $2,000 was used for oil and gas exploration. The rest was to pay himself trips, and so on. Okay, so that's the fraud, right? So imagine one of you putting in $1,000, $5,000. Who protects you? The securities regulators did everything they could. They put out the guidelines and so on. They gave you exactly what you wanted. You wanted democratization, to be able to invest, take your own risk. Okay, so now that happened. So how can we protect the ecosystem so this never happens again? So we learned two very valuable lessons, actually three. One, we should never, ever, ever let people who are not professionals operate equity crowdfunding portals. If you're not a registered venture capitalist, or you're a VC, or you're a broker-dealer, and you're neither one of those, you should never, ever be able to operate an equity or a debt crowdfunding portal. You're playing with people's money, you better know what you're doing. That's one. Two, we need to make sure that due diligence is mandated, which it is, broker-dealers. And then three, we have to mandate companies to provide monthly reporting of use of funds, so that something like this wouldn't have gone on for the 3-4 months. We would have caught it earlier. But here's what we do know about this particular fraud. The fraud did go through a broker-dealer previously, and it was turned out. But at that time, data wasn't being shared the way it is today. So, I mean, it's one of those bad things that happen just at the perfect time, because we can learn from it. So you have to take this on and say to yourself, can you afford to have $1 million being lost before you do something, or can you be proactive, do it voluntarily? One thing that I really like with this gentleman said here, that I love about crowdfunding, versus the listed issuer world where I come from, is the word transparency. In the listed issuer world, it's like toilet paper. They use it everywhere. They put it up on everything. We're transparent, we use good governance, compliance. They use those words just so the institutional investors and the regulators are happy. But in crowdfunding, it's a different thing. You have to do it to compete against Red Cross. Well, guess what? In equity crowdfunding, you gotta get naked. And not just you, your whole team, everybody, all hands on deck. Everybody has to get naked. And if you're not ready, don't bother. Just like he said, he had to account for every dollar he had to spend. And that's how you build trust. And that trust is going to do him good. Because that's the trust millennials are looking for. The young, the youth, the old. They want to know that if I give you $1, you're going to spend 25 cents there, 30 cents there. You're going to spend the money where you said you are. Not, finding a year later that you bought a Ferrari and you're gone. So equity crowdfunding is a heavy burden on all of us for it to work. This crowd here today is a similar crowd I spoke a year ago, and I told them then that equity crowdfunding only works if everybody is together in a synchronized, seamless ecosystem, working, transparent with each other. If you don't, it collapses very, very quickly.
Thank you. Wow, that was really good. So throughout the whole conference, the role of regulation and the challenges that we have with regulation is a big concern. Maybe I could ask person, the things that would change from a legal or regulatory standpoint to make things better for you to operate your crowdfunding platform, what would it be?
So, especially for us coming from a non-profit background, our perspective is very different and our needs are very different as well. Some of the problems that we face, I think, are more specific to us being a Singaporean non-profit. And the regulation in Singapore doesn't allow, if the beneficiaries are outside of Singapore, for us to publicly fundraise either through crowdfunding or any other method money here in Singapore. So when we did our fundraising campaign, we had to actually bring in a partner who on our behalf was actually leading the campaign. And these are things, if they are clearer, can actually help strengthen our campaigns even further, where our dependencies on other partners is not strong. And we can be actually more upfront and clear about why we are doing what we are doing and where exactly the money is going, rather than working every time with the partner. That's one. The second, I think, is more with regards to the platforms themselves and the way the platforms are charging the platform fee, and if there's any variation regarding that, because there's a huge amount of variation in terms of how the fees charged, and the transparency is limited in a lot of ways. And that also becomes a little bit more burdensome on nonprofits, because people for nonprofits always look at a term called overheads, which always has to be kept very low. And if we end up giving, say, 9 to 12% to a platform, then what we can actually do to deliver the product in the end becomes hard for us, right? So like when I was giving you the example of the transparency that we brought in terms of how your dollars are being spent, what we ensured that we actually had 2 people on the ground in Nepal during the entire portion of disaster relief, giving us regular feedbacks actually on a daily basis to keep our donors updated on what's happening. And that costs a lot of money for us to do it. So transparency comes at a cost, but people need to understand that it's for the benefit of everybody, and it's really not that we're making money on it. So I think that's the thing, what the fees is charged, if that has more transparency in where it's going and how it's actually benefiting both the platform and the people who are putting themselves on it.
Right. Otherwise, in the spirit of the crowd sourcing this time, we're going to let the crowd ask questions to the panelists. Can you take the first question? That's really quiet for a crowdfunding summit. Yes, go ahead.
Sebastian. I do business development in the entrepreneurship division for Silverlink Group. And what Silverlink does is we serve the incumbents, the big banks, UOB, OCBC, Maybank, and so on. And so when Marcus said that, he was bringing together.
McKinsey said that retail banking will be cut down the next 5 years by 60%. So we won't see any front office the next 5 years, basically. So it starts with leadership, and then the big challenge is how do you actually get the culture of change in the bank ready to work with startups. So where in the West you see a lot of startups partnering with banks, so Santander, BBVA, Capital One, Bank of America, they're all working with startups. I think here it's still just more wait and see, and I call it the fintech zoo, where you go to a zoo and you see some fintech startups and it's nice, you can touch them, but you don't take them home. I think this is kind of, at the moment, there's more like, just be cautious what's going on, but you'd like to know what's going on with crowdfunding, with lending. But the big challenge really is to change the culture in this entire dinosaur. Right? You can't just, DBS 44,000 people, you got to start somewhere, but it takes a long time to really make entrepreneurial infrastructure that can handle startups. It takes some time.
Do we have another question? Yes, go ahead.
Oscar, you're talking about the secondary market. Is it as in the US now?
The secondary market right now, it's in the United States and Canada so far. We do hear that UK is about to unleash their secondary market, and Europe. This is part of that global phenomenon, right? So it is going to come down this way. I apologize. China, in Yuan, has launched a crowdfunding exchange, which they are setting up a secondary market already.
Yeah, they have called Xing Shangpan. Is it the same as what were your thoughts? Is it the same as USA? The secondary market in China, is it the same?
Can you share more about what that secondary market does?
No, because it's like, but it's not really listed, like it's like NASDAQ actually.
No, NASDAQ just acquires a secondary market maker, but there are others. NASDAQ is entering the game like most stock exchanges are. In Canada, the TSX, which is the equivalent of NASDAQ, acquired one. I think they play a role, but I think the real secondary markets are going to be like what Circle Up is doing, where they have a platform where investors know what they're investing in. They build a secondary market for those investors to sell to other investors that like buying those types of asset class, which is consumer-based. Pure Realty and 10 other real estate equity crowdfunding platforms got together and created their own secondary market just for real estate. So I think we're just going to see different types, just like we have different types of equity portals. One area that I didn't mention about equity crowdfunding that I really enjoy as well, that for those who are thinking of starting one, it's never too late, by the way, it's that if you're really going to do well, you're going to find your niche. And our crowd is a perfect example of that. They're very focused on technology, life science, and that's what they do. One of my other clients, Prodigy Network, all they do is real estate. Circle Up is consumer goods. So there's even a portal in the US for cannabis. So you can raise money for that. So there's one for apps, one for franchises. Why? Because investors want to invest in things that they understand. And then the secondary markets will unfold right behind them. But we're going to see a lot more secondary markets than stock exchanges in the next 2 to 3 years.
I think the China has already done that. It's under the Xing Shangpan. Is it the same?
The crowdfunding exchange, which what the Chinese government is calling it, it's two things. It's a crowdfunding a platform and a secondary market built in at the same time. So China is allowing 450 million Chinese invest in equity-based crowdfunding right now. So, I mean, I don't know any other market that has that larger size. So it's huge. And they're allowing, like I said earlier, 50 to 100 million accredited investors to invest outside. So for those who are operating equity crowdfunding portals, make sure that you are ready for this, because you're going to have to register in China. You're going to have to prove that you know what you're doing. Portals like our crowd are going to lead the way in there, and others. They're going to take as much as they can get because they have a proven track record. But not only that, they've met the regulatory requirements to the Chinese securities regulators that they can be trusted, and you will have to build the same trust. But China is opening the gate. It's opening the gate. UK is the first country, and others will come. So, you know, the whole idea of equity crowdfunding version 3.0, whatever it may be, is that one day, right here, you're sitting down in Singapore and sitting on your desktop and looking at an opportunity that's either from Thailand, Malaysia, anywhere in the ASEAN to empower and benefiting while you're living here, or vice versa. And that's really the holy grail of crowdfunding. That's the next evolution. It's going to take us time to get there. Keep in mind that every country has security regulators that are there to protect their own boundaries and make sure that investors are protected in the process.
It seems to be the vision of CASEAN. Maybe you can share more and how the attendees today can actually work together with you guys to bring the vision to reality.
Yeah, sure. At CASEAN, we meant to be the platform to connecting us together and to facilitate what should be done. So we open up like for instance, a CASEAN forum to connecting between mission and passion. So essentially, I try to meet up between policymakers and startup, talk together, you know, what we want, what they want, and it is what exactly that they want to support from policy. Those are, for example, that we did. We'd like to add on to the crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding. One project that I would like to move towards, at CASEAN, crowdfunding platform, especially the equity crowdfunding. Like I said, instance just earlier, is not just for startup or entrepreneurs. It could be anyone. This one, I strongly believe, is going to be the platform that make the whole other change in this region. The part of the world that innovation, not much there. You do not invest in innovation all that much. Because it's likely to cluster in the large companies such as Thailand, for instance, is clustered in large companies such as PTT and SCG, and that accounted for a large amount of GDP contributions. What I'm trying to say, the crowdfunding platform is going to be the game changer to help anybody, can essentially bring up anybody and can be innovator and can help, boost up in competitiveness in the countries. I'm talking about not just the SME, I'm talking about the large corporate that they do not give much of the investment in terms of innovation, they don't have much of investment in terms of building a lab, but they can use a crowdfunding platform to crowdsource good idea and innovations out there. And that could be the next wave that if SEC is already here, you can say that it's not just about SME, but it's actually the large corporate that we can build the competitiveness of innovation all together.
Thank you. In view of time, maybe you can take one last question. And get, I see a hand over there.
Hi, I'm Izan. I'm from Lithium Accelerator. And we do training, idea validation, and talent development solutions for startups. So with regards to crowdfunding, the typical idea of crowdfunding has always been quite fairly product-based. And that's where a lot of consumers are, even people who don't know much about crowdfunding, are all very hyped into getting into the act. I mean, personally, I've backed quite a few projects on Kickstarter as well. But now if you move more towards like the tech or service solution-based type of or I call it non-product-based crowdfunding, which you call equity crowdfunding, how can a startup, okay, the ones that we mentor and all, how can they get more people who are not savvy investors to really, take action and move from this procrastination, hesitation, the unknown, to really get into it? Because it's actually still all a bit not very clear what you're getting into. So what can startups also do to make this process easier for the investors? To anyone? Thank you.
What an easy question. I got an audience here, thank you. So first of all, for you, and for everybody here, there's a great ebook. It's free, no charge. I think the most important thing you said, and it troubles me that a year later, there is a clear definition in the 4 different types of crowdfunding, and I think it's important that you know them intimately. You have to know all 4: donations, reward, debt, and equity. That's 1. And then 2, you have to know the type of company you are and which one is best for you. I mean, Marcus said in some cases they like it, they do rewards-based crowdfunding, and then you can complement it with equity-based crowdfunding. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not for everybody. But as well, you should know crowdfunding is not just for mature-based companies, because if it was, then it's been, why are we here? So it's also for the startups. So there are certain portals that will specialize in startups, but the principle based on what you need for a rewards-based crowdfunding campaign versus a debt or equity is night and day. So we can sit here for hours. So the real fundamental is that it's coming down to the basics. What's the company do? How much money do they need? Is it the path for debt or equity or rewards based? And if it is on the regulated side, back to what I was saying before, business plan, financial statements, the real business. Whether you're a startup or not, you still need those basics. Those are basics. Those are the 1, 2, 3s. And as fellow entrepreneurs, I tell you all that if you don't have those, then you're not really an entrepreneur. I'm sorry, having an innovative idea is good. Don't get me wrong, that's a great start. But you still need the other elements to a business. And if you need help, you go to the startup groups that exist here in Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia. They're everywhere. If you don't reach out, like to yourself, it'll be the same thing. So I hope I answered your question, but it's coming, it's such a, it's so wide, I don't know where to start with you, right? So, but I always go back to the basic. Here's a free ebook, 20 pages long, and you should know it inside out.
All right, maybe we'll wrap up the panel. I'm just going to ask every panelist to share. You see, we meet back in a year's time at the 3rd Asian Summit for Crowdfunding. What is one thing that you hope to see that we can celebrate so that we've done well as an industry?
You're looking at me and I wasn't prepared. and as an entrepreneur, I mean, there's so much about myself that I keep thinking about the company. So we would not be a startup next year for sure, so we would be 3 years old, and I hope to survive 1 more year. But I would really think crowdfunding is an extremely interesting and very powerful industry. And I would really see that, especially in Singapore and Asia, it to evolve to a level of far greater transparency and more creativity that we can see within the platforms or what people are using them for as well. So I really feel there's a lot more that can happen innovatively, including what Oscar mentioned about the 4 types of crowdfunding. There is a lot of room for innovation.
I would like to see many success stories on Tech in Asia, 27 where startups managed to raise millions of crowdfunding.
100%. I'm with you. I would love all of you today to be celebrating the fact that equity crowdfunding is live in Singapore, and all of you have been successful and turning the numbers around from 90% turn away to 90% being successful to get on platforms and be the first entrepreneurs to embrace this new form of access to capital to grow your businesses?
Well, I would like to see the circle of friends, circle of collaborations, just like CSN and ACs and not to build. I like to see, because this is a crowdfunding, but it's not just a funding, it's a crowdsourcing and crowd success. We can do all together, hands in hands.
I want to see many platforms happen in the future to solve any problem that existing, and I want to see more campaigns successful on crowdfunding platform.
Great. So I guess we come to the end of the panel. Like what the panelists have shared, we're a very small industry, and what's key is that we all work together to achieve some of the goals. Beyond just money, it's also the impact of what the industry can bring. Thank you very much. Next one, very good.